Everyone is welcome. The information on the classes is available on the website of the Vedanta Society of Northern California, San Francisco at sfvedanta.org. Also, please like and subscribe on YouTube and tell your friends and share. Also streamed on Facebook as well as here on Zoom. Questions can be asked on the Zoom platform either in the chat or using the raise hand function, or if you visually raise your hand, I'll see that as well. And on YouTube, during the live stream, I'm scanning for questions on YouTube, so YouTube questions can also be asked in the same order, although I'll have to voice those questions for you. And in between, of course, communication is available with the Swami through the link on the website at sfvedanta.org. So we'll hear from the Swami for an address, followed by the question and answer session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bobby, and welcome to everyone. So we are, I think this is the 14th session of this fundamental text of Indian philosophy. Now, let me make it clear, when we use the word text, what we mean is not just a book, but certain important statements found in different texts or source books of Indian philosophy. And right now, currently, we are dealing with Advaita Vedanta. And today, I am going to discuss something very, very important and vital. It is not just a word, but rather a sound. It is called Om. Most of you must be familiar with this sound, Om. So when we use the word Om, what comes to our mind is a particular symbol, a word symbol, a script, part of a script, a curved form. Now you can buy in the markets, in yoga studio markets, you can buy this curved symbol made of sticks, plastics, and some of them with some decorative lights and so on. Om. Now, Om is not the name of a thing or an entity. It is the name of a sound. This is a very important thing to remember. Om is not the letter Om that you normally write. Because the letter Om can be anything in any script, any language. Every language can be used to transcribe this letter Om. It is not universal, but the sound of Om is universal. It's an important thing. The letter of sound, the letter of Om is not universal. It is different from script to script, language to language. But the sound is universal. Now, when we use the word Om, we are not talking about a script. We are not talking about a letter. We are talking about a sound system which is the mother of all languages, all verbalizations, and as we are going to find out, it is the source of the entire cosmic existence. That's how this particular sound is used in different traditions of spiritual disciplines. Even our yogi can testify, even the yoga studios also, they chant this mantra, Om, you find. So, and sometimes in some places you have a huge curved figure called Om, and people sitting there meditate on that curved figure, which is actually wrong. They should meditate on the sound of Om, not the curved figure of the Om. Because the curved figure may be made of wood, plastic, stick, and sometimes with some golden color. It is totally insignificant because it is only the verbal representation of the sound Om in Sanskrit, in Devanagari script. Remember, Devanagari is not necessarily the script of Sanskrit language. Sanskrit language is even now it's written in so many Indian scripts. Devanagari became the most popular script for Sanskrit books by a coincidence in 19th century when Max Muller edited and published the entire Rigveda Samhita. They have to use a script which will be read by the largest number of Indians. So they have to use Devanagari script, which is a script associated with Hindi, in a distant way Bengali, Marathi, and many of the North Indian languages, which originally is linked to the Brahmi script of ancient times. So remember, when we talk about Om, I want to emphasize, it is not about the curved figure in front of you that you are talking about. We are talking about the sound. So there is a particular term which current in India is called Omkara Upasana. Means in meditating on God using Omkara as a verbal symbol. What they are supposed to do is they have to chant this Om in a elongated style, long. It's called Pluda. So Pluda means a very long chanting, dissertation. Om, like it goes on little long, it's called. It is not Dirgha, but it is Pluda. Neither Hraswa, the shortened vowel, nor Dirgha, the long vowel, but much longer. It means Pluda is called. Often used in Samaveda and Samagana is called. So this is the first thing you have to understand. It is not the script, nor the curved figure in front of you, but it is the sound Om that is to be understood. When we use the word, it's called Pranava or Om is called. Now what is Om? It is the word Om, for this sound Om, it originates from two roots, Sanskrit roots according to Panini's Ashtadhyayi Sutra Patha. So root means the root, the origin of song. So these two roots are, one is Ap Vyapto, which means something that protecting you, something that protects you from this endless series of birth, life, enjoying and suffering, dying and being reborn, and again going through these multiple layers of different experiences, both happy and unhappy, dying and again reborn, this endless wheel, which is called Praditya Samutpada in Buddhist tradition, 12-link chain, which is caused by our desire, clinging into experiences and life. Now the point is, this is one meaning of the root. That means Apt Vyapto, it means protecting, something that protects you from endless life cycles leading to spiritual emancipation or spiritual enlightenment. This is one meaning. Another root that's again from Panini Sutra Pada, means Dhatu Pada, is avarakshane. Something that, again, the meaning is essentially the same, something that protects you. But according to Sanskrit grammarians, this particular phenomenon has got 19 different meanings for the later dhatu. That is, it may be interesting for us to keep in mind. I shall try to explain this because Om is very important. So, Om Mani Padme Om, you find if you go to a Buddhist temple, you also hear Om. If you go to Jaina temple, you hear. If you go to yoga studio, then also you hear Om. And there are many places, many dining halls and drawing rooms and sitting rooms where you find this curved figure. People don't know what it actually means. It is the symbol of the unity and oneness of existence, the unity and oneness of our experience, all our experiences, and the unity and oneness of the entire cosmos. That is what it is. It is symbol. So, the Sanskrit grammarians interestingly give 19 different meanings to this later, the second dhatu I mentioned, ava rakshane. It's called rakshana, gati, kanti, tripti, avagama, priti, pravesha, sravana, swamitvam, yachana, kriya, ichha, deepti, vyapti, alinganam, himsa, dhanam, bhogam, vriddhi. Mind-boggling. But anyway, it's an entirely different world, in ancient language. In this modern utilitarian society, you may go crazy if you go about finding 19 different meanings for one of the two roots from which the word Om originates. But that's precisely this non-utilitarian aspect of this, precisely what makes it significant and important for our times. So, what it means is, see, first of all, it protects you. And then it enlightens the world. So, Kanti means, Vishwam Prakasheti. Now, remember, I had to lead you through some very unpleasant, maybe slightly boring moments in this discussion. It has something to do with the linguistics and philology and also a very profound philosophy. Okay, so you utter the word Om, when you, Hindus at least, when you do Sadha ceremony, or when you do puja in your temples, or when you go to yoga studio, not only Hindus, but for Hindus it's very important. It's also Buddhists. They also use the word Om as a symbol. And of course now the Om as assumed, so much of significance in many traditions. So then again, it is something that gives you contentment, tripti. Again, it helps you to know about things. That is called avagama, priti. It gives a sense of satisfaction and contentment for everyone. Again, it manifests as a divine spark in all beings. It is called pravesham, sushmatvat pravishyati, means it is so subtle. In the Kathopanishad, there is a very famous statement, anoraniyan makuto mahiyan atmasi jintoha nihitam gukhayam tam akradu pashyati vita shokaha dhadu prasadat mahimanam atmanaha. What it means is, this divine spark, it exists in all beings as the subtlest of the subtle, minutest of the minute, and as the largest of the large. This Atman, it exists in everything. Then again, it understands everything. Swayam Sroitri Sarvam Srinodi. It knows everything, it hears everything. Again, it is the essence of all. And it helps everyone to go about doing their duty. Kriya, samsara chakram chalayati. Again, Ichha, it itself doesn't have any desire, but it fulfills the prayers of everyone. Deepti, again it is of the nature of effulgence. Vyapti, it is all pervading. Again it is, it joins with everything. So anyway, these are the different meanings of this particular dhatu. What it means is, Om is the totality of existence and the totality of human experience. That's why among the grammarians there are different theories. It is coming from the dhatu ava, then through some process including joining of a pratyaya, it's called man pratyaya, and then it's finally it manifests in the form of the Kridanta Sutras. It becomes a, u, ma, and finally through Adgunaka the Sandhi rules becomes Om. Anyway, so this is just I'm stopping here this particular aspect of this discussion. So what it means is Om is the essence and totality of everything. So how is it called the totality of human experiences? So try to explain. Everything in this world has got two aspects. One is Vachaka in Sanskrit. I mean, a term you use to imply something, a table, a chair, or a human being's, a person's name, an individual name, and what is implied by the particular term. Table word and table the original thing, the furniture. Chair, the word, and the chair on which you actually sit. They always come together. They always go together. They move together. They exist together. So now, the word Om, if you look at it, it is formed by a combination of A, U and Ma through a grammatical process called, these vowels coming together. The join is a sandhi, means junction, is a grammar rule called Adgunaka. That's a Panini Sutra. It's a different thing. So, A, U and Ma together constitute the word Om from a grammatical point of view. But from a philosophical point of view, this division has no relevance. Why? Because you don't chant Auma, but you pronounce only Om, only one sound. According to some of our Upanishads, the Mandukya Upanishad and the Upanishads, human experiences can be divided into three categories. I already implied this, just a superficial explanation I gave earlier. One is waking state. The second is called Jagrat state. The second one is dream state, is called Supna in Sanskrit. And then Susupti, the deep sleep, the dreamless sleep, called deep sleep. Now, in all these three states, there's a difference with regard to what we experience, but there is no difference with regard to who experiences all this. So there is a difference with regard to drishya, the seeing, the objects which are experienced, but no difference in terms of who experiences, because the person, the individual who is waking state himself reproduces his waking state experiences in a subtle form at the mental level in dream, and we call them dream objects. And the same experiencer, in science called drashta, experiences a kind of total relaxation in deep sleep. It's called sushupti, I mean dreamless sleep. At that time, he comes close to his real original nature. So he feels this aham sukham apsam. He feels a kind of inner contentment and satisfaction. Now, each of these three states corresponds to one of the three letters or sound, please, I'm sorry, not letter, but a sound, A, U and Ma. experienced in waking, dream and deep sleep. Akara is called the sound akara. Again, not a letter, but sound. We should remember, sound is universal, letter is not universal. Letter is different from language to language, but sound is the same. For not only for human beings, but for animals, sound is the same. Animals also can produce a sound very similar to the human beings. I've seen recently, just to check this, to make sure that I am right when I say this. Recently, I watched a YouTube video where this Britain has got talent. We find a dog, a well-trained dog, literally says okay, fine, thank you, and so on. All these words is not different from human speech. A dog actually produces sound which is in no way different or distinct from human beings. What does it mean? Sound is common even for human beings, animals also. The same thing. But letter is not sound. Letter is different from people to people. Even within India, 23 different languages, 23 different scripts, which can produce Om in 23 entirely different ways. But at the same time, Om is the same for everyone. Now, if you look at, of course, I'm not going to the details, but I mentioned those who are interested in Sanskrit, called Samjna Prakaranam is the first chapter, the beginning of Siddhanta Kaumadi, which is an elaborate commentary on Ashtadhyayi in a well-organized Bhattoji Dikshita's Siddhanta Kaumadi. It's a commentary. Samjna Prakaranam you find. So in that book, the grammarian, he explains the formation of vowels, that is swaraksharas called in Sanskrit, vyanjanaksharas, consonants and different sounds from our inner vocal cords and also from the inner organs. Now, the sound Om, it is constituted by three sounds, akara, a, u and ma, I mentioned. A is pronounced with open vowel. It's a, with mouth is fully open. U is pronounced with mouth half closed or half open. And ma is pronounced with mouth completely closed. So these three sounds exhaust the entire possibility of human speech. Now, if you have something that represents the entire potential possibilities of human speech, its counterpart is the entire thought system and the entire cosmic existence. Remember, we cannot have a thought without a corresponding word in our mind. That's important. We have a thought, we actually think in terms of language, using language as a tool. Suppose you see an animal in the zoo, you don't know its name. You may say, well, I don't know its name. Then how do you recollect? You recollect it by an animal that I saw in the zoo, the name of which I don't know. That is your verbal representation for the animal. When you find out the name of the animal, then this verbal representation is replaced by the name of the animal. Still, your mind cannot go back to your experience without the help of a sound system or language system. So, if you have got a verbal symbol or a sound symbol like Om, which represents the entire possibility of human speech, you have practically a word symbol, a sound symbol, which is a counterpart, which is equivalent to the entire cosmic existence. So, A is pronounced with open vowel, U with half open, half closed, and Ma with mouth completely closed. And there is no other way of speaking, there is no other way of saying anything in this world. The whole human speech I go through this. So, Vedanta tells you that Akara represents waking state experiences. Ukara represents dream state experiences. And Makara corresponds to deep sleep or Sushupti state experiences. And do we have any other experience in this world? Your human life actually. People sometimes think that deep sleep is not an experience. But can you ever live without that deep sleep? Human life will be broken to pieces and you'll have to go to a lunatic asylum if you never get deep sleep for some years, for several years. Nervous breakdown, intellectual breakdown, psychological breakdown, what will happen? What it means is, suppose we divide our life, say 24 hours, divided into 3 units. 8 hours the waking state, 8 hours, let us say, some kind of a dreaming experience, and 8 hours waking state experiences. That means you may think that waking state alone is your only life. Dreams and deep sleep are unreal. But remember, suppose you are 99 years old, you cannot say you are only 33 years old. What about the 63 years? Sorry, what are the 33? 66 years? 60. I mean, hypothetically, you cannot say you are only 33 years old. You are 99. So 8 hours you slept every day. 8 hours you dreamed every day. 8 hours you had deep sleep every day. What does it mean? It means all these 3 experiences constitute the totality of human life. So in this, there is one who remains the same, unchanging, drashta, the perceiver, the seer, the experiencer, the subject, the witness. But the objects, the seeing, they called drishya, they completely change because there are differences with regard to waking state experiences and dream experiences, and all these are cancelled in deep sleep. Now, okay, let's say, ask the question, where does it come from? Let's ask this question, where does this Om come from? It comes from silence. And where does it end? In silence. So, silence manifesting in between as waking, dream and deep sleep experiences. And all this going back to silence. The silence represents Turiya. This I mentioned earlier. Turiya is the eternal witness subject, which is present in one respect, in one aspect, in, let's say, dressed in one way in waking state, dressed differently in dream, and again manifesting differently in deep sleep, Sushupti, but the same drashta is present in all the 3 states. This totality of human experience, which is also the totality of existence so far as every human being is concerned. So, that's why there is a mantra, Om iti edut aksharam idam sarvam. You find in the Mandukya Upanishad. Om iti edut aksharam idam sarvam. Idam sarvam Om iti edut aksharam. So, all these manifested objects constituting the entire cosmos, it is nothing but Om. And it is Trikala Adhina and Trikala Atita. Trikala means 3 states of experiences. Waking, dream and deep sleep. Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. Experiences within these 3 states. But there is something that transcends all the 3 states, which we cannot name, which is not an empirical experience, which is Turiya. So, Vedanta tells you that Om is nothing but the totality of existence. Totality. If we can have a sound representation of the totality of experience, it is nothing but Om. If we can use Om as a spiritual practice, and this has been experienced by many. If a person really chants the name, the sound Om as a Pluda, again Pluda is long vowel. It should not be too short. It should not be just long. It should be a long. It is called. So you find it emerges from silence. Again, Om. Finally, it merges in silence. So, if a person practices this with the understanding that he is identifying himself with the entire cosmos, he feels a kind of inner harmony and joy, because his identity is non-distinction with the entire cosmos. The whole universe brings him an air of harmony, peace and contentment. That is the explanation for this unique experience that people talk about. I mean, they say that when they chant Om, they feel a great inner joy, inner harmony and inner fulfillment. So this is an important thing to remember. Of course, it should be chanted properly. It should be chanted long. It should be chanted in a if possible with some physical purification. There are certain simple, noble intention, physical purification. If you do that, you feel this inner poise. Again, if a person chants this, it also becomes a regulating mechanism for breath system. Because remember, our breath has something to do with our state of mind. You can test this. When we are agitated, our breathing gets disturbed. And if we can somehow keep a breathing system or a breath in a state of stability and equilibrium, you feel a kind of inner harmony and contentment and a kind of poise. Now, using the same principle, if we can chant Om with total identification with the mantra, even the breathing system, the breathing exercise that goes along with this recitation or chanting, helps us to remain in a state of, to experience a state of harmony and peace. So this is the important thing that we have to keep in mind. This is one very important aspect of the Omkara Upasana. So according to Shankaracharya's commentaries, this Omkara Upasana, if a person can practice this, he can connect with this inner spark, the essence of Atman, the presence of Atman within himself and the presence of Atman everywhere. In the Yoga Sutra, there are a few very important sutras that deal with Omkara Upasana. And it's very profound. There are three important sutras in the Samadhipada, which is actually the first chapter of Yoga Sutra, Samadhipada. The 27th, 28th and 29th. There are slight differences in some printed books. One is Tasya Vachakaha Pranavaha. Pranava is Omkara. Pranava, Prakarshena Navaha. Because of a grammatical combination become Na. Means eternally new. Something which is eternally new means it is eternal. Always is the most ancient, at the same time it is eternally new. Ageless. It transcends the past, present and future. So this particular sutra used by Panini to drive home one single idea. This verbal symbol or sound symbol is the manifesting word, one possible way of implying what is beyond all implications. trying to name something which cannot be named. An attempt to explain something is beyond explanation. Words cannot explain this, but words can give indirectly an implication of this. So Om is the sound symbol by which we imply the eternal reality. This is one important sutra. The second sutra tells you something about his practice. Tad japaka, tad artha bhavanam. So, by practicing this Omkara and by artha bhavana means concentrating, focusing on the essence and meaning of Omkara. That is the totality of human experience, all human experiences, and the totality of the entire existence in cosmos. With this, if a person practices Omkara Upasana, that is called Artha Anusandhana, means you closely follow the meaning, the essence of Omkara, then what happens? It helps you to experience the presence of the divine within you. That's why when people practice the Omkara, they feel at least some relaxation they feel. Two explanations. One is the breathing system gets automatically regulated when you practice Omkara Japa continuously. That's one thing. Secondly, of course, this is a pure physical, mechanical, physiological. And at the philosophical, spiritual level, if you can at the same time focus on the identity of Om with the entire cosmos and its harmony, then you feel and experience this harmony within yourself. So every mantra has got two dimensions. One dimension, the superficial dimension. It has its own usefulness, but it's only a very, very limited usefulness, so to speak. You chant a mantra mechanically. It's called Vachikam, it's called Vaikhari. You hear it and others can hear it. It is certainly useful. At least it can drive away all other sounds from your ears and mind. And also these sounds can create vibrations. Sounds do create vibrations. So even Vaikhari means audible, the what you call the gross dimension of a mantra is called Vaikhari. It's called Vachikam. Even that is good. You can send people very violently, they do bhajan, these mantras. In the streets, hundreds of people, thousands of people, big drums and... well, that's certainly good actually. But it is not the most sublime form of its practice. At least better than shouting something else in its place. After all, you are chanting something that is not inauspicious, that is something auspicious. That certainly has its usefulness. It's called Vaikhari or Vachika. And as you move further, if a person can practice, in the mantra shastram is called Vachikam, Upamshu and Manasam. In yoga tradition, means Vachika means it is audible. You can hear, others can hear. Upamshu, where it is not audible to others. It may be audible to you, because even when we chant silently, you'll be hearing it mentally. This is an important thing. Hearing doesn't mean that somebody is shouting and you hear it physically. When you actually do mantra with a deep concentration, you can do it in a way that others don't hear. Even if you silently chants or recites a mantra, you'll be hearing it. Hearing doesn't mean the sound waves falling on our ears. For example, suppose you learn music, you must have learned a song or some composition maybe 2 years ago or maybe 1 week ago, and now you practice it mentally, or you try to practice with the help of instruments. Why? Because when you think of the song, you're actually hearing it mentally. When you see it without using your eyes, you can see with your mind. You can even taste with your mind. You are able to remember taste, which you are tasting with your mind. That's why you are going to McDonald's hamburger again. That's an important thing. So also, all the 5 functions of the 5 senses of perception and mind coming together, they have 2 dimensions. One is physical, gross, and the other one is subtle, where mind alone is involved. So, Upamshu, that is an advanced form of practicing Omkara Vasana, is not audible to others, but audible to yourself. The third stage is called Manasam, but do it mentally, where there is absolutely, it automatically happens to you. Same mantra shastra, same japa, tad japaha, tad artha bhavanam. In some other commentators, Vajaspati, Vijnana Bhikshu and others, those who are interested, I have dealt with this Yoga Sutras when I was dealing with Samadhipada. We have a lot of Yoga Sutra lectures on YouTube and the audio, and also YouTube we can find. I have dealt with the subject more elaborately elsewhere. So the same Omkara Upasana, how it really works in our life, has got another dimension. It is again more or less the same. It means Para, Pasyanti, Madhyama, Vaikhari. 4 levels of practicing Omkara Upasana. One is loud. You hear, others hear, Vaikhari. Second one is Madhyama, where others are not able to hear, but you recite it. We can hear it. The third one is Pasyanti, where it is subtle. And Para means where you become identified with the essence of the mantra. Artha means mantra artha, it's called. So from mantra artha bhavana, you actually move towards the realization of this mantra upasana is called. So now, the third sutra, in this series, the sutras in Samadhipada that deal with Omkara is Tataha Pratyachedana Dhigamopi Antaraya Bhavascha. It's a very famous sutra. Tataha means by practicing this Omkara, what happens to us? Pratyachedana Dhigamaha api means you realize, Adhigama means you realize, you experience this Atman, the inner spiritual essence that's already there within all of us, which is actually beyond intellect and mind. You realize your identity with Atman, which is beyond mind and intellect. And what happened, that this is very important from the practical point of view. Patanjali says, from this practice of Omkara Upasana, chanting Upasana, Antaraya Bhavascha. Antaraya is a Sanskrit word used by Patanjali. It's a strong, it's a very distinct style of Patanjali. Antaraya means obstacles, distractions. Obstacles in our spiritual life. Many obstacles. You try to meditate, mind is not cooperating. Or you take a decision to start, that tomorrow onwards I shall go to temple every day in a particular day. That time comes, you feel, day after tomorrow I will begin. Postponement, excuse. You open the TV, you are quite okay, happy, contented. You go and meditate in a shrine, mind suddenly revolts. So, or maybe it could be physical illness, some wrong associations, people who tell you meditation all absolute rubbish, don't care for that. These are different obstacles. These are called antarayas. abhavascha. So if we practice this Omkara, this chanting of this Omkara, it creates an air of harmony within our system, within our mind, and then what happens? We will be able to develop a kind of a spiritual mechanism that helps us to filter out wrong or negative associations, and it will help us to filter out, to avoid distracting temptations in others. So what are these antarayas? In the coming sutra, Patanjali, with this sutra, he gives a complete picture of the practical usefulness of Omkara Upasana. Means using Omkara as a spiritual discipline. Chanting Omkara as a spiritual discipline. Now, may I tell you, people really start practicing this. I have heard myself I've heard people doing this Om very loudly, and afterwards they feel a kind of, at least for the time being, at least for a short time. Depends upon the intensity, our own seriousness, our own sincerity, our own integrity, and to what extent we are trained properly to chant with total identification, the meaning of Omkara. But some result will be always there. At least everyone can feel some kind of at least a temporary feeling of harmony, peace, and kind of fulfillment, freedom from some distractions, at least for some time. Certainly better than taking pills and medicines and forgetting, running away from terrible problems. We are postponing problems by taking drinks and drugs, which will come back again with greater power and greater trouble. Now, Patanjali, the next sutra, he discusses these obstacles. The sutra is Vyadhi, Sthana, Pramada, Alasya, Aviradi, Bhrandi Darshana, Alabdha Bhumigatvam, Anavasthitattvani, Chitta Vikshepaha, Te Antarayaha. This is an important sutra, which gives a list of 9 obstacles and obstructions that stand in the way of one's spiritual practice. And a practice of Omkara Upasana, or practice of Omkara Upasana. Upasana means consistent, dedicated practice of some spiritual discipline continuously. That is Upasana. Omkara means chanting Omkara and making it turning that into a spiritual discipline, spiritual practice. So, some of these problems that normally torment any spiritual seeker can be removed or avoided by practicing Omkara Upasana. Our mind can be tuned and maybe lifted to a higher level of spiritual preparedness for higher disciplines, prayer and meditation and all that. So at least instead of going to for meditation straight away, practicing Omkara Upasana will lift the mind away from the ground level of sensory enjoyments and pleasures and take it to a higher level where mind will cooperate when we try to meditate. So one is Vyadhi, means disease, physical disease. Because when Omkara chanting helps us to regulate the breathing system, and thereby experience some kind of harmony within for some weeks at least, months, it will certainly help us to remain at least in some state of better health mentally and physically. Vyadhi means disease. It's one obstruction. Sthana is a mental laziness. I mean, physically you're okay, but some kind of a it will happen, don't bother, it will happen, postponement or procrastination. The third obstruction is pramada, means doubt, carelessness, self-doubt all the time. Not being able to take a decision in the right direction. Alasya means physical and mental laziness can be called alasya. Avirati, again, in spite of all constant reading, learning, and our own sincere effort to do some spiritual practice, there is always this mind clinging to some sense pleasures or something. It could be, then in modern times, with a click of the button, the computer or iPhone modern times, you can transform your life for the better or for the worse. Just a matter of, because you can create your own world right in front of you without going anywhere. And you can be part of that terrible world, or maybe a good thing. You can also create some wonderful things on the screen with a click of the button, or you can also create something terrible. So, some kind of, and this clinging, in spite of our best efforts, we are not able to do what we sincerely want, that state of helplessness. That is avirati. Bhranti darsana, false perception. This is very common perception. People who practice pranayama, people who continuously practice the kumbhaka, means retention. And the kumbhaka means keeping breath within for a long time and keeping the breath out, bahikumbhaka, retention of the breath outside or inside, which actually agitates the body, it generates heat, excites and overactivates the nervous system. All these can produce a negative impact on mind and thoughts and emotions and feelings. So that's called Bhranti Darsana. Actually, many of the delusions, the triple delusions which are common, delusions of grandeur, you think you suddenly become a big yogi. I have seen many people, not long ago, even very close to our own times, people who practice some little and then suddenly feel they have gone to some place, somebody from some other planets have come to have a meeting with them. All this very common. If you don't have experience, you come to America, you can see plenty on a big scale. So, Bhranti Darsana, delusions of grandeur, delusions of persecution. That's another thing, of course. It's a more serious psychological problem, and delusions of reference. But delusions of grandeur is very common. Suddenly you feel excited, you have a mission, you can do something wonderful to improve the conditions of the world, and so on, all this. Bhranti Darsana. All the triple delusions are included. Now, Patanjali doesn't go into details of the abnormal psychology, but the triple delusions are implied in the Bhranti Darsana. It's very common for people at the early stage of the spiritual progress. You do some meditation and prayer, and then you read a book about a saint, and you think you had all these experiences yourself. I remember recently, not long ago, one of our own wonderful students of this class mentioned, somebody in a hospital reported, telephoned a well-known Swami that his Kundalini has reached Sahasrara and Kundalini doesn't come down, That sort of thing. It's really a kind of delusions of grandeur. This is very common. Alabdha bhumikatvam. You have made some progress, still you feel you are not attaining anything, a kind of all the time you feel not reaching your expected goal in spite of your best efforts. Anavasthitatvam means you make some progress, but again you fall, one step forward and three steps backward. It's called anavasthitatvam, means falling away from a state after reaching there. So anavasthitattvani chitta vikshepaha trayantarayaha. These are called chitta vikshepa, means actually obstructions or distractions of mind. Chittam in the yoga system means not just mind alone, mind, memory, self-identity, all these are included in the term chittam, means speculative faculties, emotions, feelings, everything. Repository of all emotions and feelings and memories and ego identities. So, Patanjali implies that a practice of Omkara at the gross level can give you a sense of harmony and peace. And when you feel that, many of these obstructions can be slowly removed or at least you don't feel the intensity of many of these obstructions. Or you can totally avoid them when you reach an advanced state of Omkara practice. This is an important part of Patanjali's system. Of course, there are other Upanishads which deal with Omkara Upasana. Mandukya Upanishad is very important. Shankaracharya has written a very wonderful commentary in the Mandukya, Brihadaranyaka and Chandogya. All these Upanishads deal with the science of Omkara Upasana. Maybe sometime later we may discuss this at some point of time. Okay, thank you, Namaskar. Now we can have interaction. You are most welcome to ask questions. So remember, Omkara is not something insignificant. It is the most important sound in the entire Vedic literature. Omkara corresponds to the entire Vedas. So, in fact, there is a way of looking at the canonical tradition of Vedanta and Hinduism. At the grossest level, you have got all these books, Puranas, Idihasa, Mahabharata, Ramayana, all the Puranas, 18 fundamental Puranas and 18 auxiliary Puranas, Mahapuranas 18 and Upapuranas 18. And other Idihasas, Ramayana, Vedas and so on. And Vedas are the essence of all this. Okay. Upanishads constitute the essence of all Vedas. Gayatri constitutes the essence of all Upanishads. Omkara, which is chanted at the beginning of Gayatri, constitutes the essence of Gayatri. So from Omkara to Gayatri, again to Upanishads, then to the four Vedas, and again as you come down in a descending order, from the subtle to gross, you reach all the Puranas and the huge books. I mean, Omkara is the condensation of the spiritual wisdom and spiritual philosophy of Hinduism, Vedanta, and by implication Buddhism and many of the traditions, because the Omkara is used as a mantra at the beginning of many of the Buddhist prayer systems. So you can have interaction. Most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you.
I see the hands up, but there was an earlier question on the YouTube, and that question was early on when just before you started to mention that there were 23 different languages, but that Omkara is a sound. And the question is, Pranam Maharaj, did the exponents of various philosophies like Advaita, Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita experience different truths due to which they spoke differently? I'm reading it verbatim. Did they experience different truths due to which they spoke differently? I'm not sure whether or not they spoke differently because of their philosophies or the reverse. Perhaps the question is the reverse.
Yeah. So there are two approaches to this question. One, from a logical perspective, there's a gradual evolution and ascent from many to one, from without within. There's a gradual evolution from many to one, from without within, from gross to subtle. At a penultimate state, you can see things are many. As you move forward, you evolve towards an ideal of unity and oneness. So, in that respect, I can I can quote Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda says, we are not traveling from error to truth, but from truth that's lower to truth that's higher. So, again we are evolving from Dvaita to Vishishtadvaita towards Advaita. So this is the natural evolution of our spiritual journey for any person. Now, this is one approach, and this is the simplest possible answer. The other point is, In Indian tradition, there are many sampradayas, several dispensations. So very often, different schools of philosophers have different teachers, and they persistently clung to their own doctrines with all sincerity, honesty, and with total dedication. Because of this, you can find there was a lot of dialectical confrontations. Remember, they're all dialectical confrontations. If you look at the history of Indian philosophy, especially Vedanta, from let's say 9th century to 16th century, you can see first Shankaracharya comes in 8th century. He codifies the entire Upanishads, writes commentaries on the Upanishads, Brahma Sutras and Gita, and number of other books, and then he establishes a system, and he builds temples. He writes most wonderful devotional poetry, 65 of important poems in Sanskrit, and then he establishes the Advaita. Okay, now about 200 years later, another great philosopher comes. In fact, within the next 350 years, Ramanuja and Madhva, both of them, great thinkers and philosophers, they came. They respond to this Advaita and its popularity from their perspective. Because what happened during these 350 years, the devotional element of Advaita took a backseat or was neglected or was not emphasized. Instead, the idealistic aspect of Advaita was overemphasized by many of Shankaracharya's followers, beginning with Sureshwara, Padmapada, and then Prakashatmayadi and others. In response to this, from another perspective, the great Ramanuja comes and he projects the importance of devotion. It is absolutely necessary for those times because Advaita, not Shankara, but Shankaracharya's followers, not his disciples, but the next generation of 2-3 generations of philosophers, they moved far away from Shankaracharya's integral Advaita. Rather, they overemphasized the idealistic aspect of Advaita, completely forgetting or ignoring Shankaracharya's contribution to devotion philosophy. So Ramanuja and Madhvacharya, these two great thinkers and philosophers emerged. So Advaita and Visishta Advaita. And then continuously you can see a dialectical confrontation, mostly between Dvaitins and Advaitins. Among Advaitins there was Prakashatmayadi, Vidyaranya, Chitsugacharya, and of course many others actually. And again among the Dvaitins, apart from Madhvacharya, again Vadiraja, Jayatirtha, Vaditirtha, and then Trivikrama Pantita, and the great Vyasa Tirtha who wrote Nyayamrita, which is a magnum opus of Advaita dialectics, and of course his followers came here, arranged. So you can see this happening, and in between Ramanuja and Venkatananda, it's called Vedanta Desika, they also wrote books questioning the idealistic aspects of Advaita. Again, the reason was there was a tendency to move away from Shankaracharya's holistic Advaita, which did not quarrel with devotion, with accommodated devotion and Karma Yoga in its scheme, but it was again forgotten, and there was an overemphasis on the idealism of Advaita. So you can find this happened in India. So again, please remember there are two approaches. First of all, you should keep in mind from the point of spiritual logic, logic of spirituality, logic of spiritual experience, let us say, or beyond logic. But still, if you try to apply some kind of logical tools, these phenomena of spiritual progress, you can see there is an evolution, an ascent from many to one, from gross to subtle, from outside to within. So, the idea of many deities and polytheistic ideas, even monotheistic ideas, the progression towards the universal monism of Vedanta. So, this is pure logic. And surprisingly, I tell you, the prapatti aspect of Ramanuja's philosophy is an important doctrine in the Visitadvaita system. Prapatti means Sharanagati, total surrender. This total surrender, when a devotee surrenders himself or herself completely to God, he is actually experiencing something which is not technically different from the experience of an Advaita. This transcendental or trans-empirical experience, because the same devotion is defined as an experience beyond words, beyond explanations. So this is an important thing to remember. And again, of course, I have already discussed many times on this platform the great Master Eckhart, the Dominican priest who was actually he, in a way, in Christian tradition at least, he is the most important figure in the apophatic tradition, the negative theology, where God is beyond any kinds of verbalization idea. So, as I mentioned, there is an evolution from many to one. So, Advaita is a natural, logical destination of our spiritual progress. Not only just a philosophical ideal, it is a part of our spiritual evolution. Okay? No one can say, no Advaitin can ever say that Visishta Advaita is wrong or Dvaita is wrong. Nobody can say that. Shankaracharya, remember in Shankaracharya's commentaries, you have to remember, there's an important, very important thing for students, especially those in English-speaking world, to remember. Those who don't have access to a traditional teacher in Advaita. Remember, in Shankaracharya's works, when you read the word dualism or dualists, please remember, he is not referring to Madhvacharya's Dvaita Siddhanta or dualism. He is referring to Sankhya system and Yoga system. But in Shankaracharya's scheme, Madhva was born 350 years or maybe little 350 years after Shankaracharya passed away. Madhva is a later phenomenon, 12th century. Shankaracharya was from 8th century. 350 years gap you can find between the demise of passing away of Shankaracharya and the birth of Madhvacharya. So I have, in fact, you know why it's something very funny and very laughable and very painful. That is, people ask me the question, why did Shankaracharya quarrel with Madhvacharya? Shankaracharya did not quarrel with Madhvacharya, because Madhvacharya was born, Madhvacharya's great grandparents were not born when Shankaracharya passed away. There's a gap of 350 years between them. People don't have a sense of history. They frequently ask this question. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, very clear, very helpful, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Sriram, please unmute yourself. You're next.
Yeah.
Swamiji, I heard traditionally speaking that only sannyasis can do Omkara, Japa or Omkara Upasana. Is that correct?
It is not correct. No, it's not correct. Sannyasis alone, no, it's not correct. You find in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, some of the great teachers who were teaching the highest Vedanta, including Omkara, were kings and emperors, Ashwapati, Panchala king, Janaka, who was a king of Mithila, in today's Bihar. Many of them, and again, so remember, many of the rishis, sages in the Upanishad tradition were householders or retired hermits. Uddalaka was teaching his son. Tattwamasi was taught to Shvedaketu by Uddalaka, father teaching his son. And again Janaka was a king, not as a monk. Yajnavalkya took to monasticism only much later. He was a great teacher, the philosopher. And he was a married man. One of the most profound discussions in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is the Yajnavalkya Gargi Samvada. Yajnavalkya Maitreyi Samvada. Yajnavalkya and Maitreyi. Maitreyi was Yajnavalkya's wife. It is all about Amrutatva Siddhi, means immortality. The great teaching of immortality was taught by Yajnavalkya to his wife. It's a discussion happening in an household. Remember, it's a very important thing to remember. Many of the great teachers of the Upanishadic times were, not all of course, were either householders or retired householders. Great teachers living in hermitages in the forest. Many of some of them, like Sanat Kumara was a monk, Narada was one, like that. But there were many others who were not monks, remember. It's a very important thing to remember. Thank you.
Mark, you're next. And there you are.
Yeah.
Pranam Maharaj.
Namaskar, namaskar.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, certainly, I can hear you.
Okay. My question has to do with the sources that I'm familiar with where Om is discussed. I've done a little bit of study of Om, and I know that it's talked about in the Bhagavad Gita, in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, in the Upanishads, and specifically it's discussed in detail in the Manduka Upanishad. And one of the statements that the Manduka, one of the verses says, Om is truly the self. And, Om, I understand it's the basis of all existence, but it's like a vibration. How could it be the self?
Okay. Self means Atman. Atman and Brahman. That's the meaning. So, Sarvamitya Omkarameva means everything is Atman. Everything is Omkara. So, Atman is sometimes, sometimes it is called Sarvam, means it is a totality of everything. What is totality? So, self here means Atman. Actually, some books will be written with capital letter. Yes, sometimes not. But when Omkara or Om is equated with self, the self is Atman. With capital letter S.
So by chanting Om, we're getting in touch with the self. Om is actually...
Yeah, precisely. Okay. Yeah, when you chant Om, you are connecting with your own spiritual element within yourself. Your own spiritual element that is deep within you. So that's why you feel a kind of inner harmony and peace. This is an important thing to understand. Now, you can find, if you go to India, there are some Christian denominations who have created some kind of mantras with Omkara. Of course, that may be an attempt to convert people. That also is one possibility, according. But in some cases, they do it with all sincerity. Also, you find wonderful examples of that. So, Om is also associated with some auspiciousness, harmony, peace, auspiciousness. I gave you the 19 meanings, Preeti, Vriddhi, all these are examples there. Shanti means all possible ideas linked to totality, harmony, integrity, unity, oneness. All these are included among the 19 meanings for our dhatu, one of the two roots from which the word Omkara comes. According to Panini, I told you there are two important Apt, Vyapto and Avarakshan. These are two roots from which the word, the sound symbol Omkara emerges. through some kind of a grammatical process, it will become a uma, which again combined together according to the rules of conjunction called sandhi, niyama, sandhi rules, it becomes om. Anyway, I remember the teachers of Shankara's commentaries emphasize the point again and again. You should never try to analyze om the grammatical way. It is a total, they don't agree with that. Om by itself is a totality of everything. So, but again, if you want to give a grammatical analysis, this is the way to do that. But it is not, it's not appreciated by the great Advaita philosophers. They don't go through that route. Om, chanted as Pluda itself, is a symbol of totality of all human experiences and the totality of all existence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, David, please.
Hello, Swami.
Yeah.
I just had a maybe quick question. Is the Western word amen?
Yeah.
Is that related to om?
In fact, there are thinkers who take it that way. And I think it is chanted differently in Latin countries. In the more conservative Christian churches, they chant with a long elongated vowel, so it comes very close to om. When you chant it with a long elongated vowel, it comes very close to om. Again, we have to remember, om is a sound, not a letter. So we have to look at, if a person who is practicing Omkara Upasana, Omkara chanting as a discipline, he should focus on the sound and not on the curved thing that is sitting in front of you. You know, that Omkara symbol, that figure, it's made of wood or plastic, whatever. That's not what the implication. The sound, because that sound is universal. So in that respect, if you think, maybe amen when you do it in an elongated chanting, it can very closely resemble om. This is what I feel about it. Okay, thank you.
Is there any historical evidence that perhaps the early Christians, who came to India, found that, or there's no real?
After all, I think it's not an Indian language. It is Aramaic. Is it Aramaic language, or I don't know what word it is. But the word.
Yes.
Yeah, it could be Aramaic. I don't know. That some of you can tell me what language it is from. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Maharaj in Hebrew, it's pronounced omein.
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 So it's very close to. So what we say is it's a Hebrew. So it's something very close to om. Yeah.
Very close.
Yeah, very close. Yeah.
So maybe they discovered it on their own. I mean, it's a universal sound. So maybe there was some holy Hebrews or something who discovered it.
When it chanted as a long vowel, it certainly comes very close to om.
Historically, the
आप चलने के लिए जा रहे हैं, थोड़ा टाइम देख के आइए, काफी लेट हो गया. अंधेरा है, टॉर्च दूं आपको?
Please mute AJ for a moment.
पक्का? अच्छा.
I don't have the ability.
देख के जाना अंधेरे में. संभल के चलो.
Let's forward for a moment.
8:15 तक आइए.
Okay, Yogi, your question is next.
Pranam Maharaj.
Namaste.
Hello, can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear. Please.
Pranam Maharaj.
Yeah.
Om is also sometimes referred to as Pranavanadam and Adi Pranavanadam. And I heard that one of the poets in Telugu saying this is the vibration that started at the very beginning of the creation of this cycle, Kalpa. the
creation
follows that, and after that everything evolves and the human beings become, when humans evolve, and after that the actual sound Om comes from that vibration. Is there any scriptural reference for this, or is it just imagination or guess?
You know, Om, because of, I mentioned earlier, if you analyze it from a grammatical point of view, it includes these three sounds, A, Au and Ma, which exhaust all possible verbalizations, all possible speech systems. So, in that respect, it is the totality of everything in this world. But from Om, the whole world came into existence. It could be, there may be such ideas in many other later books and Puranas, but not in the mainstream fundamental literature. I mean, when you talk about Om, you have to go to Mandukya Upanishad, Yoga Sutras, and of course Brihadaranyaka and Chandogya and certain Upanishads, which constitute the basis, the original scriptures. From these, some Puranikas and other writers have taken ideas, and there are many. There are scholars who have written commentaries on Gayatri Mantra, because Gayatri Mantra begins with Om. So in that they also give a different interpretation, closely similar to what you said just now. But I have not come across anything like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you.
AJ unmuted is still on, but AJ muted has a question.
Okay, so now AJ muted is unmuted himself, and I'll go ahead. Swami, thank you for the lecture. So I have a more utilitarian question.
Yeah.
It's of course, great to learn about the metaphysical aspects here, but from a practical standpoint, in my experience, I could relate to some of the things that you mentioned, like feeling a sense of peace for the short time being that I've tried chanting Om.
Yeah.
But that's a similar experience that I've had when I've tried to focus on my breath, for example. Right? And I'm not necessarily going into the aspects of the whys of one may have experienced it, but from a practical standpoint, there are also content on the internet that says chant for 108 times, and then there are videos that are including on YouTube that talk about a certain number. Is there any relevance to that, or is it just to prolong it beyond, say, just one time? Thank you, Swami.
There are certain numbers in Hindu tradition which are considered to be auspicious, like 108, 101, and so on. So maybe if you can practice such an auspicious number of times, it may be beneficial. That could be the basis of this belief. There is always a risk of our slipping towards something which may not be part of the fundamental text of Indian philosophy, which is actually the subject title of our lectures. There are many belief systems, many practices in many cults and many organizations. They say 13 is a good number, 11 is a good number, 5 and 7. That will take us in an entirely different direction. So I was trying to focus on this. 108 is considered to be a very auspicious number in Hindu tradition, because 108 is the number of Upanishads mentioned in the Muttiga Upanishad, the number of Upanishads. There are many such ideas.
On a more practical note, Swami, so say for a beginner, is there a recommendation of the number of times one ought to experience the kind of things that were being described in the class?
Yeah. So remember, I cannot take responsibility or obligation, legal or otherwise, for this advice, but I can say this much. that if one practices this Onkara Vasana at least 10 times every day, but with taking sufficient time, he may feel a kind of inner harmony. That is true. But as a prelude to that, it may be more effective if you take a bath, if a person practices some internal, external purifications or something. Then if you chant this 10 times, not in a hurry, but taking enough time, because it should be prolonged chanting, not quick practicing 10 times, then it can be effective. That's true. Okay, 10 times. One should not go beyond that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank
no
you,
further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any more questions? I think we'll conclude now. It's 7:30. So thank you everyone, and thank you all the listeners. Thank you. Namaskar. We'll continue the discussion next. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Namaskar.
Thank you,
Thank you everyone. Thank you. Namaskar. Thank you everyone. Thank you.